was in a cult for 30 years. So, and it's like a mind control cult. And, they take you away from thinking right away. And then it's like a triangle, and you're actually paying to lose your freedoms. And people always ask me, well, why would you do that? And it's, first of all, I got in 1969. I grew up in Park Ridge, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. I moved to Lake Forest, which is a very wealthy northern, so I lost all my friends overnight. That changed my life. It was just a mess, and my dad died then. And I'm talking to these kids, and they give me this Dianetics book. And I'd read these 3 chapters in Dianetics where you could clear someone. And I thought, well, that's sort of like being a doctor. Right? That's why I'm saying I'm the opposite of a skeptic. I packed my bags and I hitchhiked in 69 from Chicago to LA. I get here, I'm kind of a hippie. He's got all these big pictures of Hubbard. I'm like, okay, I don't really like him. The Sea Org guys were marching around in their military uniforms. So I'm like, this isn't my group, right? And I should have just packed up my things and left. So my friend said, go in and ask for John Hildebrand first. So I walked in and I said, I want to talk to John Hildebrand. And they said, you can't. He's on course. He'll call you at 10:30. If he hadn't called me, I would have never been in Scientology. That's how dramatic that is. He said, I'll be out in 15 minutes. And we both said, yeah, right. He's going to drive out to the valley at 10:30. And so we get stoned again and we're laughing. And now the doorbell rings. I went, hi. He brings me back to American St. Hill, which is where I hitchhiked to. We stood outside and he said, well, what do you really want to do? And because I said, what about all those pictures? He said, oh, don't worry. That's just Hubbard. What about those Sea Org uniforms? They look really weird. He goes, that's a Sea Org. That's not us. What do you want to do? And I said, I want to be an auditor, which is like a counselor. And he said, okay, let's go meet the auditors. And they're all so cool, right? And I'm talking to each one of them, and I'm thinking, I love these people. And I remember the second I turned off my critical thinking. I remember it because I remember thinking, I don't care. I don't care what these people do. I want to be one of them. And that was it. I was in. I get trained. I have epilepsy, but I don't have seizures because I take medication. So they get me to join the Sea organization, which is a billion-year contract, right? I'm on a ship out in LA Harbor. I run out of my medication, and I say, look, I'm out of my medication. I got to get a refill. And he goes, well, okay, we'll send you to the MLO, who says, well, we're the top 10% of the planet. So we don't take medication. I start out on this program and I start having grand mal seizures. They route me out of the Sea Org because of that. And my mother starts calling me going, Tory, these people are going to kill you. And I'm like, no, Mom, it's okay. I'm going to do Dianetics. It'll really fix it. And she's like, no, it's not a psychosomatic illness. It's a physical illness and you need your medicine. So anyway, thank God she stayed on it. And as my memory got worse and worse, she started getting tighter with me. And she said, okay, what are you doing tonight? And I said, I'm going out on a date. And I mean, it's hard for me to believe looking back that I went through that. She goes, all right, I'll call you tomorrow. And she calls me the next day and she goes, how was your date? And I go, what date? And she goes, Tory, either you're on your medication today or I'm going to be flying from Chicago out to LA. And remember, my dad was a broadcaster with NBC. And I knew they had all kinds of media lines. And I knew my mom, she could kick ass. I got back on my medicine. And for me, it was wonderful because who wants to have a seizure, right? But it was awful because everyone in Scientology treats you like you're a degraded being because you're on medication. Like, how could you be on medication? So anyway, I stay, I get married, I have my son. We're not Sea Org, we're just public. And we're kind of going up the bridge to total freedom. It's not really working, but whatever, it is. It is what it is. And we knew nothing about the church, except David Miscavige had an event, and he said, okay, the world is going on the internet, so we want all of you to write up your story. They plugged in the Way to Happiness, Narcan on all their little front groups on the bottom, which we didn't know that's what it was. And then they hand you a DVD, and I go, what's this? And they go, well, put it on your computer. And I go, why would I do that? And they go, well, you have a great story. People are going to want to talk to you. No one ever called me. What it was the net nanny where it blocked out any critical information. So Scientologists can only see a piece of blue sky. It's just so you know, this is the darker side of Scientology. Most people I'd say 99% of the people don't know this side of it. I'm telling you this because it was the major part of my waking up. My auditor, which is like a counselor, says, look, I need you to open up this phony account. And I say, for what? And he goes, I'm not going to tell you, because if I tell you, they'll get you in deposition. And then you'll be in deposition forever. You're really evil people. And I go, okay, all right, I'll do it. So I go in, I get it open, and I come back, and he has a grin like as big as California, right? And I go, what's up? And he goes, you just changed the history of the internet. That's it. And it's like, I say, how can I change the history of the internet when I don't even know what it is? Now they're flying me around the United States of America, opening up phony accounts. And so somebody would come on. Now remember, I'd opened these 10 accounts for my auditor, Bill Yachty. They knew if the Office of Special Affairs, which is their PR and legal and really their dirty tricks department, I knew if they asked me to do it, I wouldn't have done it. But Yachty, who was my auditor, was just like, Tory, we really need your help. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. Like somebody would come on and say, L. Ron Hubbard's a liar. He says he has 2 wives. He really had 3. So right away they come on with some other shit. And Bill would come on and say, well, I don't really think that's important. So now he'd come in as Mary Sue and he'd say, why are you talking about L. Ron Hubbard? This is so boring. Anyway, he just kept coming on as another identity until finally a real critic would come on and go, well, I think, you're talking about golf. I'm a golfer. I think this is an important topic to take up. And he'd be like, bingo. Okay, we're good. Because now they're all the way off Scientology onto golf. And they had 3 goals. One was distract off of Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard, David Miscavige, right? They didn't want anything talked about that. And they are doing that to this day, where people are fighting with each other, that are people that are out of the church, but they're still working on it. So I had called up and said, look, I can't do this anymore, Bill. I've got to go back to work. And he said, okay, no problem. Just meet us at this apartment in Glendale. I walk in. Normally they're like, Tory, hi. They're all like this, hello. And I'm like, okay, something's weird. And Bill isn't there, right? Oh. And so I'm thinking, okay, where's Bill, right? And all of a sudden, damn, the door slams open. And Gavino comes walking in with Bill, and he goes, I warned you about her. I warned you about her. And this is my best friend, right? And my auditor. I'm like, he warned you about what? And they just pounded me for like 2 hours. Like, what are you going to say? Who would you tell? And I honestly, at that point, I had no intentions of saying anything to anyone. I was just going to leave. That was it. Done. But no, they had to keep picking on me. And I finally just burst out crying, ran out. Bill came running after me. I knew he realized I fucked up. And pardon my language. But anyway, he came after me. I jumped in my car. I said, get away from me. And I drove home. I'm crying. My husband has been in and out of town because he's like a salesperson on the road. So he's home now. And he's like, why are you crying? And I said, I can't tell you, because I had already signed a thing. It's $100,000 thing that I couldn't tell anyone. I couldn't tell David Miscavige, their top executives, any auditors, any ethics officers, anything, any of my friends, my husband, no. And I really left Scientology that night. I didn't get into Scientology to stop free speech. And then I got on the internet. I figured I'll just put myself in with the critics, which I felt were like cowboys in the old days. Whereas in Scientology, as you get higher, my husband was the top. I was right next to him, right? You can't say anything. You can't read anything. You can't look at anything. And they're like, we're counting on you not to be looking at this stuff. This is vital. Just leave it alone. These are evil people. And so I'm like, okay, I'll be in with the cowboys. Maybe somebody will help me. And that's exactly what happened. I start making these 4,000 posts. And this guy, Andreas, who's in Norway, who created Xenu.net, which is a huge website. He just passed away this year. But anyway, he was in Norway and someone was suing the Church of Scientology. And he said, why would there be a suit with a church and a Norwegian? And found all these, he read Scientology, how wonderful it is and all this stuff. And then he started reading Paulette Cooper's stuff and just different horror stories. So he said, I'm going to make a website with all the information, all the facts, how Harvard had lied and the Miscavige ripped off the church and, just different things. He had all the factual stuff. I think he's the devil because I had seen his website. I was like, Xenu? How can he have that? Because his thing is www.xenu.net. He says to me, Magoo, nobody can understand what you're saying. You're not formatting. Now remember, you can never, ever talk to someone who's declared suppressive. And I brought my SP declared just so you can see. They never give them out. They never give them out, but and Jesse Prince told me that. He said, yeah, they never give them out. I thought, I'm going to get mine, and I got it, and I laminated. And on the back, it says, her only terminal is the International Justice Chief via the Continental Justice Chief, and they'll never talk to me. So I go and sit on their buildings, and I go, I'm sorry, I have to have the International Justice Chief or the Continental Justice Chief. They have a big thing from day one. If it isn't in writing, it isn't true. That was Hubbard's thing. You know, it's like if he doesn't say it, it's not true. So I said, you might be too young to know this policy, but there's a policy. If it isn't in writing, it isn't true. And I have nothing in writing. She goes, I'll have it to you in 24 hours. And she FedExed it to me. That's why I laminated it. So Andreas says, you're not formatting. He teaches me how to format. And my mother was always really big on, if someone helps you, write them a thank you note. So now I kind of look around like, is anybody going to see me? And I just write, Dear Andreas, thank you for helping me. Magoo, right? And he writes me back and he goes, Dear Magoo, you're welcome. Andreas Heldal-Lund, and his complete address, his complete phone number, his complete cell phone number. That changed my life. It's like if he hadn't done that, I would have agreed, yeah, he's a really evil guy. He's got all this stuff up. But because he gave me his whole address and phone number, it was like, how bad can the guy be, right? So he teaches me how to format, and it works. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the devil. And he taught me how to format. So I say, Dear Andreas, why do you have up all this stuff about my religion? And he writes back. I mean, the guy was like, he was a skeptic extraordinaire. I mean, he was just amazing. And he writes back and he goes, Dear Magoo, I believe in truth. I believe in looking at both sides, and I have the courage to say what I think. I don't think Scientologists are bad. They're just misinformed. I suggest you start reading. And I'm just crying. I'm in my dining room where my computer was, and I couldn't stop crying. I knew this is it. That's it. That's the end of it. I can't do Scientology anymore. That's it. I don't care if I lose all my friends. I'm done. I'm going to lose my husband. It's like, I'm just done. It's just so much. You know what I mean? It's everything in my life that I've been is gone. And so I'm like, what am I going to do? And so I write Andreas and I say, Andreas, I can't stop crying and I can't talk to anybody. If I talk to my friends, they're going to leave me. And he goes, Dear Magoo, I'm crying reading your email. I gotta ask you this one question. What kind of friends could those be if they're going to leave you because you change your mind? Wow. Great question, huh? And that was it for me. My Truman Show cracked open. I was like, that is it, man. He's right. They're not my friends. And so then it was like, I've got to get out of here. I'd say to Andreas, I have to talk to someone who knows what I'm going through. I'm freaking out. I have to talk to someone. So these three people had started. Have you ever heard of Lisa McPherson? Scientology basically took care of her, and she ended up dead after 17 days. And they killed her, basically, is what happened. But Stacy, Bob, and Jesse, right. And they're in Clearwater, Florida. And they started the Lisa McPherson Trust in honor of her. Stacy sends me an email and she goes, Dear Magoo, who are you? I said, Dear Stacy, I really appreciate you writing me, but I can't tell you. I just can't. You have to remember back to when you woke up. I mean, I didn't trust her. So I was like, I can't say. I get an email from Stacy Brooks. And I think, she's going to help me. And imagine I'm all by myself. I'm like, she's going to help me. I open it up and it goes, Dear Magoo, sorry, we can't help you. So I thought, you know what? I got to make the leap. And I have a big sign in my house that says leap and the net will appear. So I made the leap and she called me. She goes, Tory, we used to audit together. You know me. You know what I mean? I was like, it's so great. And she goes, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. I don't know what to do. I'm like, just flipped out. And she goes, well, why don't you come visit us in Clearwater? And I said, I can't afford it. And she goes, we'll fly you there. Just go to the airport. There'll be a ticket there. I get a van. We get out to the LAX. And now the plane's canceled. And I think, can Travolta cancel a plane? I'm like way out of my league, right? And Stacy had said, bring a phone. And I said, Stacy, they don't do stuff like that. And she said, Tory, we used to run these programs. We know what we're talking about. Bring a phone. So I bring my little flip phone thinking she's crazy. She's making it up. It's not that bad. But now I'm inside LAX. I hear the high heels coming down the way. And it's the vice president of the Church of Scientology. And she's like, we know where you're going. You're not going there. And I get on my little cell phone. I go, Stacy, the vice president is here. And she goes, okay, do not set down the phone. Now I'm kind of going, I have to get on a van. And I figure if she's going to follow me, she can carry my stupid luggage. So I say, here, you carry my luggage. I got to get on the van. So now the vice president is walking along behind me. I think maybe this guy will help me. So I go, look, I'm escaping from a cult and she's the vice president. Can you help me? And he goes, do you want to get on the van or not? I got on the van. She got on the van with my luggage. We get off. She's following me everywhere and she's writing everything down. And I have to go here, there, whatever. And now I get on the plane and I think, oh, I'm free. I'm done with Scientology. And there was many more things that happened in between it. But just because I only have so much time, I'm like, okay, I'm free. This is good. We get off in Chicago, right? And we have to change planes. And guess who walks up to me? My husband, Tory. What are you doing here? Now, if he had said, Tory, what are you doing here? I need to talk to you. I need to know what's going on. I would have stayed with him, but he didn't. He said, Tory, what are you doing? We need to go on a vacation. Now, I knew vacation for the Office of Special Affairs is, and no, they don't tell you this, but I just somehow, I know it happens. It happened with Lisa. They lock you up and God knows what happens. I don't, but I wasn't going there. But when he said vacation, I knew, okay, this guy isn't on the same page as I am at all. And by now, the Office of Special Affairs shows up. And I said, I thought you were just here by accident. And he goes, well, okay, they're here too. So I said, look, I'm going to get on that plane and you are not. And if you get on that plane, I, Tory, am calling the police, which is a big no-no in Scientology, like I said. So I get off the thing thinking, okay, I'm done. There's going to be nobody there. It said Stacy, Bob, and Jesse. Wrong. A friend of mine is leaping up and down with a big mob of Scientologists, the police, and Stacy, Bob, and Jesse over here, right? And she's like, Tory, you've got to talk to me. So now she goes like this, Tory, I just want to let you know one thing. I can get a message to David Miscavige tonight, whatever you want to tell him. And I said, really? You can get a message to David Miscavige tonight? Well, you tell him this. I picked them.